Hello, I'm James Fitzsimons and welcome to the Career Scoop, a podcast all about career progression, advice and experiences aimed at assisting those who are in career transition. Today my guest is Derek Kenny. Derek is the co-founder and managing director of Cornerstone Global Partners in Hong Kong and has been involved in the field of human resources and recruitment for over 20 years. I'm delighted to welcome you to the show, Derek.
Thank you so much, James. Delighted to be here from Hong Kong.
That's great. What time is it in Hong Kong now?
It's 5:15 p.m.
5:15 p.m. Okay, so it's 9:15 in Dublin Friday. Here.
Looks very bright where you are. Is it because is it sunny outside?
Yeah, it's a lovely day in Dublin. I say it's about 10 degrees, a bit of sun coming up.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And if you were over here, we'd have you down on the 40-foot out for a swim just to start your day.
I want to go home for Christmas one year just to do that 40-foot, by the way. I never did it before. I was only telling my wife about it the other day. I said at Christmas time, people go and jump in the 40-foot in Dunleary. We can go and stay there, yeah. Good idea.
That sounds really good. Right, Derek, just jumping into this, I really appreciate your time, and I know you're busy. It's the end of your week in Hong Kong. You might just share with our listeners, give me an overview of your career today, please. The highs and lows, what you've learned, what you're most proud of.
Okay, so it's quite a long one, so I will try not to bore you here and talk too much, right? So I didn't finish school, the leaving cert. So I'll start there. And the reason I didn't finish school was I just wasn't suited to school, you know, kind of, maybe they call you ADD brain or something like that, or ADHD brain. However, I went through most of school and then I just figured no, don't bother doing the leaving cert. And I did most of the year, but I just kind of pulled out and thought it wasn't for me, you know. And then I remember my dad took me to an interview up in Lidl, I think it was, and they said I was a Dunnes Stores Maverick, so they wouldn't even give me a job. Dunnes Stores Mavericks, I was working at Dunnes Stores for years. They said, oh, we don't need a Maverick coming in here from Dunnes Stores, you know, trainee manager job I was looking for. And anyway, they said no to me. So then a friend of mine knocked on my door with a piece of paper from the Evening Herald, actually it was, and it was like trainee managers needed for this sales company. They said they were a big multinational. So, you know, Usher's Key in Dublin, they had an office there. So I went in for the interview and, you know, it was corporate office in the middle of Usher's Key, which is not the most corporate place. It's quite a, you know, not such a nice part of town, you know, in fairness. And then I started, and it turns out it was door-to-door sales. I had no idea what I was going in for, and it was door-to-door sales working for a charity. It was Gorta at the time, you know, Gorta, the Irish charity. And then I started off just doing door-to-door sales and getting people to donate money to charity. You knock on 100 doors a day and you find your 10 positive people and you make your sale that way. And I was pretty good at it, actually, because I really loved it. I very much enjoyed it. Most other people didn't like it. I just loved it. I thought it was quite easy, to be honest with you. However, when it's, you know, it's raining heavy outside or it's cold, and, you know, sometimes the pen would be, I remember my fingers would be sore because it would get quite cold in the evenings and you're knocking on people's doors and you're doing 100 doors a day and so on. So anyway, I knocked on a guy's door one day, pitched him, said no. And I pitched a few more doors. He followed me down the road and he said, you know, I've never seen anyone take rejection like you before. And he said, here's my card. And he was the managing director of a big American listed recruitment company in Dublin. And anyway, I went along, kept on doing my door-to-door sales. I had a team as well, which I built, and I was very young. I think I was 18 at the time. And then one day, I think 6 months later, I was in the middle of a field, actually, and it was raining heavily. And I just remember I was drenched. And I had the guy's business card in the inside of my pocket, and it was all in bits, of course. And I just managed to get the number out, and I had one of those old Nokia phones. I remember ringing him. I was in the middle of the field soaking, and I remember he said, "What took you so long to call me?" And I go, "Well, I'm actually quite enjoying doing this, you know." And he said, "You know, MD of this big American company in a nice office on Pembroke Street, and you know you're out there knocking on doors. You know, I'm surprised it took you so long to call me." So he was expecting a call immediately, of course, right? He thought he was giving someone the opportunity of a lifetime. And so look, that was Robert Half International. I did a number of interviews with them. No real corporate experience at all, or even sales experience, just that door-to-door sales experience. And then that's how I got into the recruitment business. And then I started off just working from scratch, you know, with Robert Half, and they gave me some very good training. And then obviously I worked with you, James. I was lucky enough to go down and work with Cox Fitzsimons and Wilkes at the time, which was which was a fantastic company. For me, that was a great organization, actually. Some of the happiest times I've ever had. My memories are working for the company that you ran with Susan Cox and David Wilkes. You know, it was a fantastic experience for me. And the way you treated the staff and stuff. For me, actually, no, when I really look back, I learned a lot in that time working with you in particular. And I remember you took me out for lunch before, and, you know, because I was very rough around the edges, as you know. And I just remember you tried your best to kind of polish me off a little bit and give me the tips and stuff like that. And actually, I kind of take that with me even till this day, you know, what I learned from you and what I learned from people in Cox Fitzsimons and Wilkes at the time. And even looking back, actually, you know, it's the best company I think I ever worked for, maybe apart from what I'm doing now. And that's and I swear on that one, the Cox Fitzsimons and Wilkes was such a great company, you know. I have fond memories. We went to Poland and stuff together. I have very great memories of that organization. So anyway, moving on. So I did the recruitment business, as you know. You owned the company I worked for quite a while. And then I went to Australia. I did the recruitment business in Australia. I had a nightclub promoting business on the side, and I was chartering boats in Sydney Harbour, like for 500 people, selling tickets, DJs on 3 levels, and I got involved in promoting parties. I think we used to promote some Ministry of Sound nights and stuff. And then I returned to Ireland in 2008. Not the best time to return to Ireland, you know. I met an Irish girl in a train station in Sydney, and then ended up like kind of falling in love and all that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, it seems like a great idea to leave my beautiful apartment in Bondi in Sydney to go back to Ireland in 2008. It was miserable. They are talking about the IMF coming into the country. I left Ireland when it was booming, like booming. It was party time. And when I went back, it was a different world. You know, nobody had money. I remember meeting you in the Epla Shaker for lunch you took me to. This was just before I left to go to Hong Kong, and we had the conversation. And I remember you telling me, oh, it's going to get really nasty next, Derek. And this was when all the repossessions and everything were happening and so on and so forth. And then because of that time in Dublin, you knew it was a very, very dark time. You know, it was dark. It wasn't good for people. And I was just very lucky. I messaged a friend of mine who worked in Sydney. I worked in Sydney with him. And I was like, look, man, I was actually sitting in Sigmar offices looking out onto Hume Street. And I just remember it was a very dark and dull day. I was like, I just can't do this anymore. You know, I'm getting out of here. And I just messaged my mate. His boss rang me from Hong Kong that morning or that day. He was like, hey, I heard you're Sean's mate. He's in Singapore working for us. Can you come out to Hong Kong? So I just said, yeah. I said, I went around the corner on the Baggett Street and did the conversation with him on the phone. He was like, well, when can you start? Because Sean said you're good. Come on, come over. So, and then, look, I just jumped on a plane again. Didn't have any money, really. And I think, I don't know, it was like, I don't know, €500 or something like that. And then, look, I got to Hong Kong, and, you know, I started off here, and Hong Kong was a bit of a disaster for me at the start. It didn't work out, didn't work out with that company, and they forgot to pay me in the first payroll. They didn't realize I had no money, and it was a nightmare. And I met an Irish guy. He gave me a spare room to stay in, and, you know, it's been and then I set up Gulf Connections as a company with Derek Dorman based out of the Middle East. That went quite well, but again, I didn't really have the equity in that company, so I kind of figured out these guys are never going to give me the equity, and I'm doing all the work. And then I set up Cornerstone in Hong Kong and went into business with Chris Watkins and Gillian and Sophie and Alfred and Sally and Peter, and they're all up in China. And, you know, Chris had a great vision for the organization where he gave shares to a lot of the different staff. So a lot of my staff in the Hong Kong office, I'm just in the office here now, you know, they have shareholding in the company, and the company is worth, you know, we're probably going towards $100 million now. And we're owned 40% by Morgan Stanley and Media Capital, and we're hoping to file for an IPO in June, you know. So look, that's a kind of a short, you know, intro, quite a long intro. I hope it didn't bore you there.
No, it's great. Yeah. And just you might explain to the audience the type of clients that you're, and the kind of recruiting kind of assignments that you're handling at that kind of mid to C-suite level.
Yeah. So when in Hong Kong, I had to develop what is my niche in the market, and I was able to develop a niche of helping international companies enter China and expand in China, and also in Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, mainly in the technology field. However, in China, we've done an awful lot of market entry work for some of the biggest names in the world, taking them from the US and taking them into China. And this was before you have the likes of the anti-China sentiment and the anti-US sentiment obviously in China. So there wasn't as many political issues going on at the time. So look, when I look back on it now, it seems so long ago. It was really only 2 years ago when everything was very positive. Well, maybe actually longer than that, because Trump probably started turning the screws on China only about 2 years ago, 2 years and a bit. So before that was great. And we've worked with like the biggest banks in the world, like you named them, HSBC. HSBC is a great client of ours. They're one of the biggest banks in the world, right? Not so big in Ireland, but in the UK and Asia, they're huge. And in Hong Kong, they're the biggest bank in Hong Kong. And we do the business with Morgan Stanley. We do the business with some of the biggest brands in the world, like Nike would have been one of our biggest clients for years. We took Victoria's Secret into China. We took them in. We did everything for them, all their market entry work, and obviously they're well known too. And then most recently, I just set up a management consulting business called Enterprise Solutions, and that's doing really well. We're like number one in one of Asia's biggest Asia's biggest insurance companies. I was down with the CIO 2 weeks ago, and he says, you guys have the most management consultants out of any firm in Hong Kong in our company now. So that was quite amazing. So we have the recruitment business and now the management consulting business called Enterprise Solutions.
Wow, that's really interesting. And as I hear you talk, and through Ireland, to Australia, to the Gulf, back to Ireland, to Hong Kong, networking must have been or is a skill of yours. Do you want to share what's networking mean to you? How do you do it? What are the simple things? What are the hard things? Because for some people, it's really hard.
Yeah, like I think. Networking is by far it's the key to all the business that I do, for sure. Everything revolves around the network, and in China they call it guanxi. And again, James, I remember that day when you had lunch with me in the Apple Shaker. You told me about guanxi. They call it guanxi in China, Derek. I actually remember you told me about that for the first time. And guanxi is basically networking relationships, right? And in Hong Kong, they wouldn't really call it guanxi, but in mainland China, they would call it guanxi. Relationship and networking is by far what's gotten to me to where I am right now. And I think for me, I've been a little bit different. I genuinely enjoy my job, right? I actually really love the recruitment business. I love it. It's great. It never feels like work to me. And I genuinely don't really think about the money side of things. I can't say I've ever really thought about it. And when I had no money, of course, I needed money to survive. But networking for me is all about seeing how can you help somebody else, without really looking for something else in return. Like you genuinely want to help them out. I met a guy this morning, actually, my second meeting, and he has his own business. He used to run Uber in China. He was the managing director of Uber in China. And he was the guy who started it up. And he's after setting up his own tech business now. And, this morning, I was able to put him in touch with, 3 MD CEOs, some very big companies who can use his product, That doesn't really benefit me in any way. However, he's just gone out and set up his own tech business. I met him for the first time. I thought he has a good product, How can I try and help him out? Now, of course, let's face it, he's going to appreciate that. If he ever does become a big company and he gets lots of funding, maybe he will come back to me and we'll do business together, But networking for me is thinking, how can I help that person out? And sometimes it will come back to you. And I always think if you just constantly approach life in that way, how can I help this person to get to where they want to go? You know what I mean?
And it's not just the kind of the business stuff, it's the human stuff.
Human stuff, yeah.
The easy stuff like the guy in the hotel, the guy who serves your coffee.
Yeah, no, for sure, and it just makes me very happy on a human level to live my life that way.
Yes, and so how would you advise that 22-year-old coming out of, or 18-year-old coming out of school, 22-year-old coming out of college, or someone who's maybe upcoming, they're going to lose their job, and they say, I'm not a networker, I have nobody. How do they start? What are the kind of 3 tips to start would you give them?
Well, you see, I suppose that for people viewing in Ireland here, right? So I'm from, say, the Jobstown, Brookfield area, right, in Dublin. There was no real people for me to network back there for what I wanted to get in, around Dublin and Bargate Street and stuff like that. So first of all, people convince themselves, this is the number one thing I notice people tell themselves: I'm not from the right area, I didn't go to the right school, I'm not from the right family, so I don't have the right contacts. However, I've noticed actually that doesn't really mean anything at all. It's meeting people. And if you're a young person, the first thing I would be doing is, if you are hungry to learn and you're hungry to work hard and you really, really want it, you should be reaching out to, I would say, famous people, famous business people, through LinkedIn, and sending them a nice handwritten card message. Business people running companies, small companies, large companies. And I'd be approaching them looking for advice. I'd say, do you have half an hour, 15 minutes of your time? I can do a video call with you, or can I grab a coffee with you? I've just finished university, or I didn't finish school, and here's where I want to go with my life. It seems you've done pretty well. Would you mind meeting me to give me some, advice? And if anyone sent me that message, I would take the time to meet them for sure.
And how many, out of curiosity, do you get many of those messages?
No, not really at all, actually. Not many, I have to say. Because people get intimidated. They see the fancy job title and they think, oh, that guy won't have time for me.
Okay, so by implication, it's a no-brainer for someone to do it, because that person, if you take the logic of it, the people say no, they won't accept my email or my handwritten card. So then many people don't do it. So that's the opportunity to, in effect, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. You have to. So today I had a lot of meetings already, right? And actually, I didn't get into my office until 2:30, because my first meeting started at 8 a.m. in a different location in Hong Kong, and then my whole day was meetings. Now, I could look at it and go, I wasn't in my office, I couldn't spend time with my team this morning. However, I generally judge my day some days, how many people did I meet? Because I know if I'm meeting people, I can make things happen, right? If I'm not meeting people, I can't. So whoever is looking to network, you should be really just judging yourself. How many people did you get FaceTime with, whether it's a video call or in person? And that's really the key number, the key performance indicator. If they want to network, it's all about doing whatever it takes to get a meeting with somebody, whether it be a video call or a coffee. And things will happen, if they are genuine and they want to work their ass off and they have a good attitude, magic will happen from those meetings. But it starts with the meeting. You have to get a meeting.
Yeah. Okay. Any mistakes you've made, or any funny stories you want to share about your career? I seem to remember something about in the desert you did something.
Yeah. Well, many funny stories. A lot maybe I wouldn't want to share here, to be honest with you. But look, it's been very unpredictable for me so far, in life in general, really, right? So I never knew I'd end up out in Hong Kong. I never even thought I'd end up in Australia. I never thought I'd be doing half of the stuff that I'm doing right now, right? Funny story, I'll give you the Gobi Desert one, just like you mentioned, right? So, my friend Daniel Bennett, very good friend of mine, I'm sitting at home one day. I was actually hungover. I used to, go partying quite a lot and stuff. And it was a Monday, I think it was. I was feeling terrible. And he rang me. I was sitting on my couch, and he go, "Hey, mate," real thick Aussie accent, and he's very fit. This guy, he's like a machine, And he's like, "Look, I'm gonna go on this Gobi Desert, 250k through the desert. Do you want to come with me? Come on, mate. It'll be great crack or great laugh," or whatever he said. I said, yeah, sign me up, no problem. I'm the kind of person, if I say I'll do it, I'll do it. That's just who I am. It's my word, right? Because I think that's kind of like your integrity. You should kind of carry through the stuff you say you're going to do. And I've been like that. I think it's a very important part of how you live your life. So anyway, I said I would do it. Then I Google, gets off the phone, Gobi Desert. And the way Google comes up, like the name, and then it kind of like brings up other stuff, what's most relevant. It's like Gobi Desert death. It's like, what the hell is this? So I click on that. It's like a guy just died on it that summer. Then Time magazine named it as the second toughest race in the world and stuff like that. So anyway, we had about 9 months to train for this thing. And at the time I was still quite young. I was out partying a lot, single bloke, He was out training, running up mountains. I wasn't. I was still out partying all the time with my friends, and he'd be wanting to meet me at a trail at 4 a.m. in the morning. I did it with him twice, actually. He'd go, we're going to meet at 4 a.m. at the peak of Hong Kong. We're going to do 50 kilometers through the mountains. And the first time I did it with him, I got home at like 3 a.m. And people were saying to me in the club, hey, Derek, you're not meant to be going on a 50K run today or hike with Daniel Bennett. I go, yeah, I am. What time you meet him? I meant to meet him at 4. Oh, you better go home. So I'd go home. And that one I did, actually, I got through it okay. The second one I did with him at 4 a.m. in the morning, I went home early that night and went to sleep. So I thought it'd be easy. And then I ended up collapsing like at around 30 kilometers. I said to Dan, can you see that dog? He's like, what dog? Oh, he's like, oh no, you're in a really bad shape now, Derek. I was beaming heat as well at the time, and I was like, the sweat felt like pieces of ice dropping onto my neck. Not a good feeling. You're overheating or whatever. So I did that 2 of them with him, and I nearly had to get airlifted out of that place. And next of all, we're on the Gobi Desert. Fast forward 9 months, and like the Spanish Olympic champion is there, right? I'm in the race with him. And he says to me, oh, yeah, Sonia O'Sullivan, yeah, good friend of mine. I'm like, well, of course I know her. This will tell you the level this guy was at, like Spanish Olympic medalist. And I'm there hanging out with him on this 250K race in the bloody Gobi Desert. No training, really, honestly. I'm not joking with you, James. I did barely any training. 2 nights before, I was out smoking and drinking in Beijing with a few friends of mine. And they're all like, you're not meant to be doing that 250K thing in the Gobi Desert in a couple of days. I'm like, yeah, that's why I'm here. I got to fly into Ularamshi, and then I'm going to be up in the Gobi Desert. And so I met Dan Bennett the night before the race, and I can remember he was terrified for me. I can remember having dinner with him, and him. I can just look back now, him remember thinking, I hope Derek doesn't die on this race, So anyway, day one had a lot of stuff to think about. I was last, of course, by far. But just kept going. And then anyway, I ended up winning the Gobi, the Spirit of Gobi award with Dan Bennett. And it was a great crack. And, it was very, very tough. And the doctors and everything were giving me a lot of hard time about it. You shouldn't be on this and all this kind of stuff. And look, that's where I decided to make some very big life changes. I gave up kind of drinking because I saw how healthy people could be on these runs. Like a 70-year-old Japanese man ran through China with a Japanese flag out of his backpack, through the Gobi Desert, which I thought was quite impressive. He could run like that. He just kept himself in good shape his whole life. It was amazing. And I got to see how people were living their life like at the top of their game. And I just decided I want to be like that. And I want to stop cutting corners. So I just decided then, I'm gonna give up drinking, and I'm gonna stop messing around, and I'm gonna get serious about life. And that's when I did. And that's when I decided to make those changes. So I get back from the Gobi Desert. A friend who was on the Gobi Desert, I met him on the Gobi Desert, but I knew him already. He was there. And he rings me when I get back from the Gobi Desert. He's like, look, there's this guy I know in China. He's looking for a business partner. And I just told him about this crazy Irish guy on the Gobi Desert who just wouldn't give up, and he shouldn't have been there. He's like overweight and everything. And he was like, I need to meet that guy. He said, I'm looking for someone to go into to set up business with in Hong Kong. And that was Chris Watkins. And then I ended up meeting him off the back of that. So that whole thing changed my life, that Gobi Desert.
Wow. So that's kind of networking extreme, putting yourself in, but what came out of it and the story. That's a great story. Great question, Derek. What do you look for in people that you recruit?
Yeah, it's a very good question, by the way.
Or maybe what do you not look for, maybe?
Yeah, so I'll tell you, and I just had a conversation with a CEO of a company about this morning, and he actually recommended a very good book to me. Well, I can't remember it now, but I'll send it over to you. So one piece of advice I give people is you always look at the facts, right? So a piece of paper tells the whole story. If you look at someone's career and they have a trend or a habit, which is, they've moved jobs every year and a half for the past 3 jobs, there's a problem there. No matter what they say to you and no matter how good they sound. So when I interview people, no matter how much I like them, I can get along like a house on fire with them. But I always go back to the facts. What are the facts of this person? So, okay, they were in that job didn't work out. Okay, to me, that's their fault. It didn't work out. That's a fact. The fact is it didn't work out. regardless of who their boss was. The fact is that job did not work out and they were not a success in that job. So then I have to go to the second job. What happened in that job? Oh, the company shut down. Okay, again, for me, it's like maybe they had a bad lack of judgment joining that company in the first place. So I have to look into that. It's not just as simple as the company shut down. I have to go, okay, what was their thought process to join that company? Did they not realize that company was a risky company? And I look at that and I think, would I have realized that that company was in risk of shutting down when I was looking at it? So then I question their judgment and stuff. And then I'll go through again and I'll be like, where's their trend? And you'll notice most people have a common theme throughout their CVs, James, whereby the same thing keeps happening to them over and over and over again. So what I look for is people without those things on their CVs. I can accept one, but I won't accept more than that. I just don't accept it because I made so many mistakes when I set this company up in particular. I had really high staff turnover because I kept believing the stories of people. This is why that job didn't work out because of my manager. Now I'm just really factual. No matter what sob story they give me, no matter how much I want to believe them, like I really want to believe some people. I want to believe they can be successful in my company. And I just have to go back to the facts. You didn't work out where you were previously. You're probably not going to work out with me. I'm sorry, I just can't hire you. Now, if I go into the personality traits, we have the personality traits then, right? But that's the factual stuff. You just can't escape that. It's like the person who gets, married and divorced 3 times. Whose problem is it? Is it their problem or is it the partner's problem? The partner probably has no other divorces but this person has 3 or a load of wreckage of relationships. That's the person who has the problem. But most employers want to believe the stories you see, and this is where they make the mistakes. Anyway, on the character side of things, first and foremost, I look for a genuine kind of honest person, right? Because the way I look at it is if the person doesn't work out, once they have good integrity and they're honest, it's hard to spot this, by the way. A lot of people can bullshit you. But once they're honest, there's limited damage they're going to do. They're not going to cause you as many problems in the background. So look for the honesty and the integrity, number one. Like, you have to be quite intelligent. You do have to be an intelligent, smart person. And I will delve very deep into people's family backgrounds because you have to find the fire why people are doing what they're doing. If you're a very together person and you're from a wonderful background and you have loads of money coming to you in the future when your parents pass on, the chances are, like, not all, you do have some outliers. The chances are that you're not going to be that most driven person because you don't have to fight like other people have to fight. So for a sales job, I will look for people who I know have no choice but to make it. So I'll go into the family. Now, of course, it doesn't matter for operational roles and stuff, that's fine. But for people who have to take a lot of rejection and get kicked around the place every day selling, I need people who are very, very, very tough. They have to be resilient. And I believe the family background or the childhood, the upbringing really tells me a lot about what I need to know about the person, because resilience is generally built in childhood, right? This is why people, James, who get straight A's all the time, some of them, again, outliers, have very strong resilience. But most kids who get straight A's in school throughout life, they've never built up their resilience because they've just gotten straight A's, which is great for them and they're great kids. But the problem with that is they've never had to deal with failing. And then there was one guy I went to school with, always got A's. And when I was in Rathmines in Dublin last time, he was working in McDonald's. Now, I remember he was such a lovely kid, and he's a lovely guy now. We had a talk and stuff like that when he was in there, and we had a good old yap. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong working at McDonald's, but you get me, right? He was a straight A student, and if we go back to school, everyone would have thought this guy would have went on to do amazing things. However, my take on it is he just had no tough times when he was younger, so he didn't have to build his resilience, And I think that's the key for sales roles. I'm not talking about operational roles or business roles, entrepreneurial roles. To be an entrepreneur, you need to take serious pain, 100%. It's horrible, really, a lot of the time. It's not nice.
Yeah, it's interesting. So so you're looking for people when you see them as there's a bit of fire in the belly, a bit of hunger, a solid track record in a sense, and maybe they're intact in their ego. They're happy who they are. Or
so the ego is a big issue, right? And it's an issue for me in my company today, and it's been an issue for me in the past as well. The ego, I always tell people, ego is the devil. If you have an ego, you have a really serious problem, because me running my business, really, I always say this to people, if you're Elon Musk, maybe you have a right to have an ego. However, if you have an ego, you're hanging out with the wrong people. Because if you think you're doing well in life and that gives you an ego, you probably wouldn't be talking to me if you were doing as well in life to have an ego, because only the likes of Elon Musk's and the Warren Buffetts and all these guys, to me, deserve to have an ego, or someone who cures a disease, or someone who goes out and builds an amazing charity and helps, so many people. They're the people who deserve to have an ego if they want to have an ego. But ego for me is one of the most disgusting things to see in people. Like, it's really horrible, and I do have to deal with it. And I generally have to sit people down and have a very deep and meaningful conversation with them. My last conversation with somebody about this went on for about an hour and a half, and it's a massive derailer for people to have an ego. You shouldn't have an ego. It's like, if you ask me, it's probably the worst thing, James.
Interesting.
Like, ego is horrible. And it's like, James, you meet someone who has a big ego. It's also from a business point of view, it's the massive turnoff for people when they meet someone with a massive ego.
It's kind of, do you not know who I am? Kind of comment.
Yeah, all that kind of talk. I genuinely believe you should just be, nice to everyone, because there's Muhammad Ali has a great saying. He's like, I always look how people treat waiters in the restaurant, because I know that's how they would treat me if I wasn't who I am.
It's
very true.
That's a really clever, very, very, very clever. This is a very, very sound approach. Everybody's equal.
And it's very, very true. Well, look, I do the sailing now, right? And I'm a member of one of the yacht clubs here, and you would think at the yacht club it's kind of posh, right? Because that's the idea it has. Now, there's many of these members clubs in Hong Kong. And there's like the Hong Kong club, the China club, and some of them are full of egos, right? The reason I love the yacht club is because the guys said to me, everyone's equal on the boat, Derek. And I love that. I had a meeting with a client down at that club today, actually. He said, my God, Derek, I really like this club. He said, I would have thought this would be a really pompous place. And I said, no, I wouldn't be a member if it was. I love this because everyone's equal on the boat. And that's the saying here. So no matter how rich someone is here, how successful they are, nobody really has an ego down here, because on the boat, everyone's equal. Doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah, the sea doesn't make any exceptions. If it's going to get you, it doesn't matter who you are. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. I think the ego is terrible. I generally don't bow down to egos either, by the way. Like, I walked out of a meeting on a CEO in Hong Kong there not so long ago, and I was meant to meet him at one of those fancy clubs, actually. And again, long story short, I just kind of said, no, I'm okay. And I left. And, I don't care who someone is either. If they have that kind of ego, I just don't want to do business with them either. And, they would think just because they're a big CEO of a company, you might bow down to them and stuff. But no, I won't, because I just don't want to deal with people like that. They're just going to make me unhappy. So why should I bother with them?
Well, that makes career mentors, Derek. Have you been lucky to have career mentors and mentors in your journey, in your career journey?
Well, I think the mentors change, right? So obviously, James, when I worked with you would have been one of my mentors. And then as we grow in different companies, we have different mentors. But one thing I'll say, I've also went through stages where I've had no mentors, and that's been terrible time, actually. So I remember in certain companies where I had nobody to look up to, and I never really. I kind of not having a mentor is detrimental to the success of your career, for sure. When I came to Hong Kong, I didn't really know who to look at as a mentor, and then I found out obviously about Liam Casey doing his business over in Shenzhen, and him over there. He has been a huge inspiration, actually, to people like me in Hong Kong and many other Irish guys in Hong Kong, because he was a serious guy over in Shenzhen didn't drink, just worked. So within the Jewish community, they have lots of mentorship programs. I noticed this with the Israelis. They have a lot of mentorship programs of serious business people. But just to go back to your point about the whole mentor thing, Chris Watkins, who I met at CGP, that guy has been an unbelievable mentor to me. He's taught me a lot, not just professionally, but also personally too. And he's been like, that guy has been instrumental to me in being a mentor, because I just connect with his viewpoint in life and how he treats other people. So, over the years, I've had to deal with, I've been too aggressive in my business and too wanting things now. And, he's had to say, cool down a little bit, relax yourself. What's going to happen if he rang me late one night, right? And he said, Derek, why are you the way you are? You go, I'm in Vegas talking to everyone in the company, and they're just saying you're just too much. You're just too go, 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 go. You're just driving people mad. He said, I didn't go to Vegas, and he said, you're driving them mad. He just rang me out of the blue one night, and he was, that's not good. You're pushing people to breaking point. You're actually being aggressive. You don't realize it and stuff like that. And he said this to me. He just go, look, Derek. And he honestly spoke. I think that night we spoke for 3 hours, right? And this is how a powerful mentor can help you, And he said, look, why are you like the way you are? Why are you so controlling? And why are you like this? I go, I don't know. I'm just afraid of failing, Chris. I don't want to let you down. I don't want to let the company down. I just want us to be a great company and successful company. He go, Derek, what happens if we're not a great company? I go, well, don't know. He goes, what happens if we don't have success this month? I go, maybe we'll lose money. He said, what happens if we lose money? I go, maybe we might go bankrupt one day. He said, what happens if we go bankrupt? I said, we're finished. He goes, what happens if we're finished? You go, you have a great track record. You can always get a job somewhere. He goes, are you dead? Are you sick? I'm like, no. He goes, so just chill the hell out. And he said, and when he spoke to me like that about that, it really changed my viewpoint on things. And really that changed. Like, I have a very happy company now. People are very happy, don't suffer staff turnover, the very odd one. But people are generally very happy in my company now. When I walk into the office, there's great energy. And I didn't have that previously, because I was just a ball of tension, wanting to be successful at any cost. And I was burning through staff because I was just pushing everyone too hard. And now my business is more successful than it's ever been. I don't push people as hard. I'm a bit more relaxed. And I'd say I'm just probably a nicer person to be around. And that was all because of Chris. And that was a real defining moment in my career and how I live my life right now. I don't really get as stressed out anymore. I'm not a stress head anymore. And it was just that conversation.
And can I ask you, why did you listen that time, out of curiosity? Was it just something? It was just the right time, or?
Oh, look, I knew, right? Kind of, the way you're just so driven to make things happen, and I always felt like I was catching falling plates all the time. And the business was going great. Like, I was one of the highest performers in the organization in terms of bringing in money and stuff like that on a personal level. Everything was great. But I knew, like, I couldn't continue to do that anymore. Like, I was going to have some kind of breakdown, Like, I think you actually might have met me in Dublin a few times, and you might have picked up on it, And I was just ready. I genuinely think people have said it to me afterwards. They were like, Derek, honestly, like, we looked at you previously and we thought, you're just gonna have a breakdown one day. You're just turned on all the time. You're just business mode 24/7. I was at a business dinner one night and a guy pulled me to one side. It was the Ireland Chamber of Commerce rugby event. He just called me to one side and he's like, you never switch off, do you, Derek? I'll never forget it. I was like, no, I do. He goes, you don't? Like, you go, I'm looking at you there tonight at this rugby dinner. You're just always on. He goes, you never switch off. That's so funny, right? And now I'm a bit more chilled.
Yeah, that's great. So, Derek, I'm conscious of your time, and it's late in Hong Kong. Would you give me 5 words that might describe your career if you're looking at yourself in the mirror?
Yeah, I'd say it's been quite adventurous. It's been very unpredictable. It's been tough, and I think another word I would use to say that, I don't know what word to use, but I've gotten an awful lot of satisfaction out of it so far. I don't know what word we could use for that, but it's given me a lot of satisfaction, And I'm generally, I would say I'm quite, adventurous would be the main word, though. It's been quite adventurous so far, as you know. So I think I could leave it at that. I don't know if I have any other words to use to describe it,
Okay, Derek, listen, I really appreciate your time today. We've known each other a long time. I'm very proud to see where you've come from being a young man. I'm learning from you. Every time we have little interactions, you remind me of some of the kind of very simple basics of accept us who we are and accept everybody else as an equal, and then just go forward and keep moving forward, and stuff happens for you.
Yeah, well, hopefully. It's a mad old world right now, but I think everything's going to get better, though. Pfizer has a vaccine. We're going to be all good.
That's right, and it's made in Ireland, so we get there. We get the vaccine first.
Oh, is it really? I was wondering how Ireland got it first. Well, that's fantastic.
that helps, It's the network, So, Derek, listen, I'm going to let you go and for your weekend, which starts now. I really appreciate it. It's always great to catch up with you.
Take care. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Career Scoop, brought to you by Elevate Career Advice and Elevate Executive Selection, Dublin and Bermuda. I'm James Fitzsimons, and I hope you've enjoyed listening. Make sure to tune in for more new episodes of the Career Scoop in the new year. Have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. See you in 2021.